I accidentally ordered ham, so I had to pick out the ham. It was a whole thing. I was doing so good for the first 3 weeks, and then...
Oh, you're giving up meat completely?
No, it was just on Fridays. I had,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Oh, today is Friday, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing good. I haven't had anything to eat.
There you go.
What about you, Father?
I had an almond joy chocolate cake.
You still chomping on that thing?
Well, a person just brought in 2 cakes for us to test out, and you're welcome to go to the office to get some. But she made a regular round cake and a sheet cake, and they're both almond joy cakes, and they're both wonderful. So it's hard for me to choose which
I
one.
highly endorse them both.
So I had a piece of both, and that was my lunch.
And that's why he didn't give up chocolate.
Absolutely, because I was not giving up chocolate for Lent.
All right, I think I'm ready. So, Jason, you want to kick it off?
All righty.
So, Mike, introduce yourself, and what do you do here at St. Laurence?
Sure. So my name is Mike Cleary. I'm the coordinator of high school faith formation here. My wife and our 2 kids were parishioners here at St. Laurence, and I oversee our high school ministry, which is grades 9 through 12, any type of faith formation or activities outside of immediate sacramental prep. So anywhere from our Sunday evening, what we call Life Nights, our weekly catechetical programs, to retreats, events, conferences, summer camps, etc.
What called you to ministry? What brings you to ministry?
Sure. So I grew up, I guess first of all, my mom was the one that raised my brother and I Catholic. My dad, he passed away when I was in middle school, but even before that, he wasn't always practicing the faith. It was really my mom who passed on the faith to my brother and me. So I have her to give the credit for it and the thank. But the parish we grew up at, they did a great job at allowing, I think, young people to get involved. So for instance, when I was in middle school, my mom was a catechist for our elementary school program, our CCE program. And so I was like her assistant catechist or her aide as a middle school student. And then when I was in high school, I helped with our middle school faith formation team, and I got to serve on there. And then in college, I helped with the high school team. So I was always involved with, I guess, the next grade level. It was just part of my growing up as the parish. And one day the pastor offered me a summer internship, and that turned into an interim director, and the rest is history. So.
Wow, that's a wonderful journey, man.
It's not the journey I had in mind, but it's been great so far.
Tell us a little bit more about the Life Nights. What exactly happens in a Life Night?
Sure. So a Life Night is, it's similar to our Edge Nights. Edge is our middle school ministry for grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. So both middle school and high school, we kind of follow the same format. And there's 2 main parts. There is a gather and proclaim, where in a large group setting, where there's the teaching that they hear, or the proclamation of the gospel. And then the key component that's different than maybe the traditional classroom style religious education, if you will, is they break up into small groups where they can discuss the message, discuss the topic, ask questions, and how it impacts their life as a middle school student or a high school student.
And what are some of the challenges that you're seeing in our youth?
Sure. Probably more so, I mean, since the pandemic, there's a real, and it's probably youth and adults, but there's a real loneliness. I think, 10, 15 years ago, there was obviously loneliness and isolation, but you would be in a room with people and that would be enough community for you. But now a young person can be in a room, can be in a crowded church and still feel isolated, still feel alone, still feel a bunch of different things. It's not all due to the pandemic, but you can throw technology in there. Access they've grown up with an iPhone or smartphones, and so having that 24/7 definitely is, from a morality standpoint, from a mental health standpoint, there's a bunch of ways we can look at that. But
And how can the church help our young people overcome those challenges?
Number one is, like I said, each of our teens are in a small group. Our parish is huge, and that's a huge blessing. But at the same time, one of the focuses of having a small group is that it kind of helps we tell our high schoolers and we tell our parents, these small groups help our big church feel smaller. And so it's easy especially at a parish this size, to show up and not know people, to not be known, feel noticed. And so they can go into their small group with their 6 to 8 friends or peers, some of them that they've just met, with their 2 adult leaders. And they can feel known, they can feel loved, they can feel accepted. Maybe something that they don't feel at school or at home. So that's number one. Number two, specifically, I guess, with the technology challenge, it's interesting. We just had a high school retreat at the time of recording a few weeks ago, and one of their favorite parts, like traditionally, their favorite parts maybe were Eucharistic adoration or a different experience of the sacraments, which obviously are still vital and still important in these retreats. But countless teens, when asking them what was the most beneficial part or what part of the retreat would you want to do again, or different questions on when talking with them, a lot of them said they really liked the time of silence that we gave them, where we just said, go out into the forest by yourself, don't bring your phone, maybe bring a Bible and maybe bring something to write with, but other than that, don't bring anything. And they gave them an hour, and they all said how quickly it went by and how much they're like, I want to be able to do that. Because again, with our phones, they're not bad. We obviously all love our technology. We're on a podcast. But how hard it is for all of us to make time for silence and to just escape. And so twofold, giving them community, but then giving them time for silence and reflection, and not even necessarily for prayer, although that is important, but just time by themselves.
And how can we challenge the adults of St. Laurence to help our youth? How can we help you do your job even better?
Sure. I think twofold. One is, the easiest way is to get involved and to, we have, at the high school level, we have about 60 small group leaders. They volunteer their time every week, and these are what are traditionally known as catechists. They help form our young people, but they lead these small group discussions. Between middle school and high school, we have about 100 small group leaders that serve every single week. And but when we have about 800, 700, 800 teens that come through our doors every single week. So 100 adults we could use a lot more. And so number one, being a small group leader. And then number two, I would say if you've never been to the 5 o'clock Mass, it's not just that time I know isn't for everybody, and it's can be tricky with schedules. But if you're able to go to the 5 o'clock Mass at least once, our parish, all of our masses have a lot of families and a lot of young people at them. But just given the time and that it comes right before our high school program, there's a lot of high schoolers at the 5 o'clock Mass. And if nothing else, I think it can rejuvenate your own faith when you see young people not just showing up for Mass, but actually worshiping and participating.
What are some trends that you're seeing out there in the community and the church that involve youth? Or
Sure.
What new areas are we looking to explore, or maybe we need to look at even more?
Yeah, just I mean, there's a lot of studies, a lot of talk right now about how the current generation, Gen Z, that would be like the older high school students, and like our college age students, young adults, young professionals, young married couples, young singles. There's a lot of studies about how this generation, and probably millennials before that, probably started with Gen X, a lot of people in the past couple generations have left the church. But at the same time, it's interesting. A lot of studies are showing that the younger Gen Z and even a lot of Gen Alpha, they're coming back to the church, or maybe not even coming back to the church. They're embracing faith in ways that previous generations haven't done. Not just at St. Laurence. I know at St. Laurence we're seeing an increase in young people going through OCIA and receiving sacraments of initiation. We're seeing that at college campuses around the country. I know in the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston here, U of H or University of Houston, and there's a lot of young people that are seeking out the faith. So that's probably the biggest trend is that there's probably, and this is a huge generalization, but there's probably less middle ground right now. And it's people have either left the faith or they're coming for the first time. And it's kind of it's a fun time to be a part of.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what can we do as a community to support you and your ministry here at St. Lawrence?
I mean,
other than praying for you.
Well, yes, absolutely appreciate that. We do, and there's always ways to grow. There's always ways, and we're constantly trying to look at best practices, and even in youth ministry, like the concept of youth ministry is probably 30, 40 years old, if that, and we're constantly evaluating and changing different things. But honestly, I think continuing to do what we do, there's a lot of studies out there. Fuller Youth Institute, led by Dr. Kara Powell and her team. I think they're out of California, but they basically have done studies on churches that are growing versus shrinking or even closing. And one of the common denominators every time is your church, is the average age getting younger or is it getting older? If it's getting younger, your church is growing. And if it's getting older, your church a lot of times is shrinking. And that sounds obvious, but there's just a life and an energy that young people and families, young families, bring to a parish. And so just embracing what we're already doing as a parish, there's, like I said, there's still a lot more we can do, and I'm excited for the future of our parish, but we've had a great history of youth ministry here at St. Lawrence, and I'm excited to continue that because, like I said, it's a huge factor not only in the lives of our young people. Most studies, and we could talk all day about different research out there, but most studies, it used to be high school, college age was kind of when people made faith their own, and you could tell if someone was going to be Catholic or practicing their faith for a majority of their life. Obviously, God still works in his ways, and we all go through different conversions. But most studies indicate it's now middle school and maybe early high school, but it's like 5th, 6th, 7th, maybe 8th grade. Wow. When a young person's, like, the trajectory of their faith is kind of, I don't want to say predetermined, but people, you can tell if this person's gonna accept their faith for the rest of their life or not. Most people, it's in middle school where that becomes a reality. So it's huge for the individuals, for their life as a Catholic, for their souls, but also for the life of the parish. Again, there's so much research, so much data about churches that are growing in size versus churches that are shrinking or even closing throughout the country.
So what are ways in which parents can encourage their children to become more involved in youth ministry? What are some ways in which you encourage parents to tell their children about the faith?
Yeah. I mean, the easiest way to get them involved is to register them and invite them to show up. I often hear from parents saying, "Hey, my kid won't come," and we can work through those conversations. But I always tell parents, like, if you can get them in the door, we can take care of the rest. Give it 4 or 5 weeks, or give it 4 or 5 weeks coming to our program. We don't have a 100% success rate. Sometimes after those 4 or 5 weeks, maybe, but usually 95% of the time, they end up loving it, finding a community, finding friends. We just had 2 people this past Sunday. They were sisters. They had just moved to Texas, they were brand new to Sugar Land, St. Laurence. It was their first time coming, and they left already knowing people from their school and connecting and passing out phone numbers to some of their friends. And they're like, yeah, we're coming back next week. And they were pretty nervous when they were walking in the door. So I'd say number 1, you can help us by getting them in the door. Obviously, it's easier for a young person to embrace their faith if their parents are practicing it as well. Again, most studies, if mom and dad usually, but at least mom or dad are practicing the faith at home, going to mass, the child sees you praying, you're probably more likely to have that outcome with your teenager. It's not to say it doesn't happen the other way. It's probably not the preferred ideal method, but we hear every year about moms and dads coming back to the church because their young person got involved,
Yes.
or their son or daughter went on a retreat and now they want to go on an Acts retreat. Or I just heard about a young person that was getting involved here at the parish in one of our liturgical ministries. Mom and dad end up coming not necessarily to attend mass. They came to see their son or daughter, as a lector or sing in the choir. And now their son or daughter's off to college, but mom and dad not only are attending mass, they're volunteering and serving in ministries at the parish. So we see it happen the other way. God can obviously use young people to form their parents. But I would say number 2 is if parents can practice at home, that's going to make all the difference.
So there has been a lot of interest in the church among young people since Pope Leo is ascended. What do you feel that has been his influence?
Yeah, it's where I think the data and the research is still coming in, since he's only been the pontiff for, about a year, over a year now. And so we're still, but yeah, just in the past year, there's been an increase of college students and young people. So I think we've been trending in this way for a while, but I think really his influence has, if nothing else, has led people to explore the faith, or maybe that haven't thought about it before. It's interesting. There's even been a surge of young men. It's not just young people, it's young men or young boys that are interested. Like at Life Teen, or in high school faith formation, it's usually 60-40 girls to boys. That's traditionally, there's usually more girls at our high school programs than boys, and that's been the case for a long time. This past retreat that we recently had with our high school students, it was our first one. We had more boys than girls, and it wasn't because we had less girls. We just had more boys that were interested in signing up. So it's a lot of factors. It's our male small group leaders that are pouring into them. It's our presence of priests, and Father Wayne, our parochial vicar, has been great with them. And but I definitely think Pope Leo he's definitely helped kind of push that to the next level, yeah.
So, Mike, how can someone become involved in faith formation?
Yeah, so the easiest way is if you know what grade level you're interested in, you can contact that coordinator, or their information's in the bulletin or on our parish website. Contact the coordinator, and you can come shadow, or you can come see if it's maybe a right fit for you. And then after that, we'll help you go through the onboarding process of discernment. Is this where God is calling you. Is this the right ministry for you? Are you a good fit for the ministry? Through a series of onboarding processes. So you don't have to necessarily know if this is where God's calling you to. You're welcome to, if nothing else, reach out to one of the coordinators. And if you're unsure about what age group, you can reach out to our director of faith formation, and we can help kind of plug you in until we find a good fit for you.
What excites you about youth ministry?
Like I said earlier, I think the impact it has on the parish and just their excitement, the joy that young people bring. Just this past week, we had a 5th grade retreat for a group of 5th graders, and just their joy, their excitement, their energy that they brought. As adults, a lot of times we have these walls built up, or it's maybe conversion's a little bit more tricky, but young people, as we talked about, they're struggling with a lot of things, but their ability to surrender their lives or surrender what they're struggling with and kind of have these conversions in their life probably happen more so with young people than adults that we're kind of stuck in our ways. So just their openness and their excitement, I think it's contagious for all of us.
Well, thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We really
Father.
appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your ministry.
Well, thank you, Father.